Live from Los Angeles, here's Everyway Woman.
Liza, what do you think about Kelley Thomas?
Well, I'm glad we're starting with something easy. So I think it's interesting. The issue has really caught fire across America, and I think rightfully so. It's really sad, of course, to lose any type of life. But I'm kind of curious to know, would the reaction been the same had he been a person of color?
I was thinking the same thing. I'm glad you went there because that's kind of the million-dollar question. Had Kelley been a person of color, African American, Asian, Latino, would we be at this place, or would it be heightened? What do you think, Christina?
I think the difference is it's not a race issue, and that's why people aren't getting so excited about it, because since he was white and the officers were white, that kind of takes it out of the equation of like, oh, this is a racial issue, and that's why people usually get excited about police brutality, because race is usually involved.
Well, I, for one, actually think people are in an uproar about it. I think maybe if they want it to be bigger, their community, his community needs to get more involved, the same way a person of color's community would get more involved. Also, the reason why a lot of times when people of color have the same situation, it becomes an uproar because of our history in America with the police and police brutality.
But interesting enough, you're right, it hasn't turned into a race issue, but it has turned political.
Definitely political. I mean, well, and I also think it's interesting when you see the pictures that they're releasing, like the one on his bed in the hospital bed. I mean, you can't even tell that it's even a man or a person. I'm like, okay, how graphic is that? Who actually is choosing to, release those photos? And unfortunately, or fortunately with social media now, you kind of have to be careful with what information is out there. Now they're saying, okay, they want to do a recall and the sheriff's leaving on medical leave, but now people are also saying, well, maybe that was actually a political strategy because he wanted to get into office himself. So it's a sad thing that you even have to think that way, that you can't even look at the loss of human life, but to think of it, are they using it as a poker chip?
Well, listen, that's a good point. You said, who wants to get in politics? The former police chief, or who's behind this political buzz that's going on? The city council. There's some questions about, his parents. So there's a lot of interesting pieces, not the racial piece, but what would you hone in on? Why is it becoming so political?
I think maybe because, the whole thing with the police and the police chief and what he's doing now, taking his medical leave of absence and things along those lines, make it appear to be a conspiracy, when really they need to get to the heart of the matter of this man lost his life. And even though this isn't a racial issue, this is a human rights issue.
But
he's a human being, and he's not really being treated
you're also
as
being
such.
political, though. But you're like, he's taking a vacation and stuff, or he's going on medical leave. But the reason he's going on medical leave is that he can dip into his purse and he can get paid. He wants his cheddar. I mean, come on now. So that's where this strategy is coming out. So it's not just like, okay, well, I'm going to go. It's like, look at what happened with everybody in Bell and that government.
Exactly.
And, what we're still discovering to this day. Sadly for us, in this one, you had to deal with, the loss of a human life. And I wonder, had people not had their camera phones and been able to record it and, put it out there?
Know about it.
Exactly.
Well, I think that's interesting that you say that, because that leads us into we're talking about the police chief trusting the police. There's this whole dialogue about, do you trust the police? Their training, when do they go too far?
I think, honestly, you can trust the police to a degree, but at the same time, you have to consider the fact that they are human beings as well.
Right.
You have crooked cops and you have good cops out there, and it's sad because how do you decipher the two?
Well, but you and I were talking, and you said that they went too far, and I think all of us would say that they went too far. But I have to put out here, we don't know what type of decision a police officer has to make in that split second.
And that's true, but
so you don't
at
know.
some point, at the same time, come on, something has to kick in and tell you this is too many times. His face was, there was no face.
I got that.
Have a face.
I got that, Jackie.
That's
but
crazy.
Listen to what I'm saying. I'm not disputing that they didn't go too far. But what I'm saying is people are outraged. You don't know what type of decision an officer has to make in that split moment.
And
that
you don't
leads
know.
to
You know what, though? Also from the camera, if you watch some of the footage, somebody had said he was on his back. Why can't, it's 3 cops over there, why can't they just put his hands behind his back? So it seems like something is, more suspicious to me. That seems like they just went crazy. Maybe they were power tripping. Maybe these were a few corrupt cops. We don't know,
And the difficult thing is, though, is that when the police are the ones brutalizing somebody, what can you do, as a bystander? You can't call 911, but the police are already there, and they're not doing right.
And that, I think, is a great thing to bring up, and I think that's why people got it on their cameras.
But also in the camera, people were screaming to the police, "Stop! He's down! Stop! He's down!" Like, where was your clicking? What's going on with your training?
But
the problem is when the police are the ones in authority. If you're just somebody watching a person of authority, somebody who is the police, you feel like helpless, like what can you do when it's the police that are doing wrong?
But going back to what Stacey's saying, I also think, you know, they all say in time of that fear of flight syndrome, you know, especially with someone that's schizophrenic, you get like this unusual amount of physical strength.
Absolutely.
So again, I'm not condoning what they did at
absolutely.
all, but I'm also very curious to know what was their mind process. I'm very curious to know what that is, because I'd like to be able to prevent it from happening in the future.
In my opinion, if a person has schizophrenia, then you take extra precaution. My thing is that yes, if you know someone's crazy, then you wouldn't. The first thought in your head shouldn't be beat him down.
Okay.
It should be to
Handcuff
kind of
them.
restrain him.
So
That's what police are trained to do.
Let's
to
talk
restrain.
about this, because I'm going to use myself in trusting the police. I'm already going to tell you that if I get pulled over by the police at night, I'm not pulling over until I'm in a well-lit area. And it has nothing to do that I have schizophrenia or anything.
Way to be
It's
safe,
just
girl.
that because of everything that's going on and the heightened awareness, if I could say, about police officers, you know, it's just, so that's me. So am I wrong?
No, actually, there are websites with different information that actually say it is safe, because there are people who pose as cops or have cars or might have the signal. So you should, especially if you're female, to pull in a well-lit area and stop. As long as you're not going on a high-speed chase with them, you should be fine.
I know that, like, we could talk about it forever, but like before we have to go, I mean, one of the things that I also want to discuss is the fact that where the parents were involved. Like, I know we were talking about this off camera. I know if that was me and I came to my mom and I said, you know, especially if I had any type of mental disease, and said, Mom, I want to be homeless, you know, I'll see you later, bye. You know, like, there's no way that my mom would have had this engagement. So I know it's probably a hot button to pick, but I also want to know, where were the parents?
Yeah,
That's true. And that one we could talk about, because I like to talk about raising grown children. Stay tuned to Everyday Woman. We'll be right back.